Welcome everyone to Virtual Venture Cafe number 9. This is Resources for Artists. A couple ground rules from the top. Please keep yourself on mute unless otherwise prompted by the presenters. And if you have any questions, use the chat box at the bottom of the screen to enter your questions, and we'll get to them in the best order that we can, either throughout the middle or at the end of the session. So I want to present our speakers for the session. We have Kirsten Swartz, who is the Community Arts Administrator at Cambridge Arts. She supports a lot of the local artist community through programs like Open Studios, the River Festival, Summer in the City, a lot of things we know and love and we really appreciate. Prior to coming here, she has a master's degree in the museum studies with a focus on art history. And next up is Jason Weeks. Jason Weeks is the Executive Director at Cambridge Arts Council. And the mission of the Cambridge Arts Council is to provide a living, working, and visiting experience for art for the residents and visitors of Cambridge. So if I miss anything, Jason, I welcome you to add to that. But otherwise, please take it away.
Awesome. Sean, thank you so much. And it's a real pleasure to be here. I have worked with and known CIC since the very beginning, and I'm just delighted that the Venture Cafe provides an opportunity for us to connect with other artists and makers, technologists, and other folks in the city, you know, from our creative sector. So Kirsten and I are really excited to be here tonight. We're happy to hear your questions and to really be in dialogue. Everybody, I know, as Sean says, comes in on mute, but feel free if you have a question to unmute and ask that question, and we'll try and cover as much as we can. And I'll start with just a little bit of an overview of Cambridge Arts. We are a municipal arts agency. We've been around now. This is our 45th year, which is quite a long time, of course. And we're not the same organization that we were when we started. You know, the whole idea was that Cambridge is a city, and of course, based in a region that's rich with artists and makers and arts organizations and just a really dynamic creative sector. And so we established, and the city established, I guess, the Cambridge Arts Council as a way to really be in touch with our artists and our arts organizations and to kind of take care of that community over time. And so we've done that in many different ways over the years. But we think of ourselves, you know, as the entity in the city that has that 30 or 40,000 foot view and thinks and takes care of our artists and our makers and our organizations. And so to do that, you know, we've broken things down into 3 sort of simple buckets. You know, we think of ourselves certainly as a presenter, and you'll hear from Kirsten talking about some of our major presentation opportunities that we do throughout the year, like the Cambridge Arts River Festival and others. And we also think of ourselves as a connector. We spend a lot of time, you know, in forums like this in real time, you know, together with people when we can do such a thing. And digital forums like this to try and connect people to information and connect people to one another and connect people to different organizations, you know, all to mutual benefit. And then finally, and maybe even perhaps most importantly, we're a public sector funder. So we make dollars available to our local artists and our local creatives and our arts organizations so that they can actually carry forward on the ideas that they have and gain traction and momentum and really lift that up to the broader population in Cambridge and the region. And so we've been doing that in different ways, like I say, for now 45 years, which is really exciting. And when we think about, you know, the agency, we drill down from those 3 big buckets. You know, we have a whole collection and portfolio of programs and activities that we oversee. And so a lot of that, many of you have experienced moving through Cambridge and visiting Cambridge and our neighborhoods to see public art and creative placemaking and keeping. And so we commission public art for the city, such that we have the largest contemporary public art collection anywhere in New England at this point, right in the city of Cambridge. And so not only do we commission that, but we really care for it. We take care of it. Through art conservation, restoration over time, and, you know, that type of thing. And so, you know, we'll go through our programs tonight, our community arts programs, and talk just a little bit more from Kirsten's point of view about, you know, how that work actually hits boots to the ground. And then hopefully, you know, take questions from you guys and talk about the work that we have done historically. And so, you know, I'd be remiss if I didn't say, you know, during this time, like all of us, we've had to really figure out in an incredibly rapid pace how to take, you know, our thinking, our programs, and those services that I talk about online, in this pandemic experience that we find ourselves in. And really, the first step there was once we all began to work remotely, because we all had sort of different ways that we were able to do that. Once the staff came online, it was really making sure that the community knows we're open for business. We're here, we're going to continue doing the things that we do. And, perhaps the most important thing was to reassure the community and all of our grantees that all of their money was secure, that we weren't going to, take that back or renege or change that in any way, other than to make it as flexible as possible, and make sure that not only did they know it was coming, but they could use it either for programmatic work or use it for those things that are right in front of them and the most critical needs, during this really disorienting and challenging time. And so, once we did that, it was then to think, how do we transition our programs and our work into virtual spaces, onto platforms that perhaps we haven't used in as deep a way, previously. And so, the first of that was really transforming what we call our Cambridge Arts River Festival into the Cambridge Arts Stream Festival. And so you'll again hear Kirsten talk more about that. But really it was securing the funding, making sure that folks knew we were here, and then establishing opportunities for new funding and new support and new ways of caretaking for the community in this pandemic space that we all find ourselves in. And so, that really helped us think about perhaps taking money that was dedicated for one purpose and turning it into a different purpose. So we were one of the very first communities that developed a dynamic artist relief fund, and we based that with our partners at the Cambridge Community Foundation. And the reason we did that was so that we could use both city and private money that was donated to the foundation, and we could use that to support not only our resident artists and our companies and organizations that exist here in Cambridge, but all of the creatives that we know come into Cambridge and make their livelihood here. We have such a robust sort of creative gig economy. As many of you know, we wanted to be able to support those folks equally in this whole experience with the pandemic. So we've now just, actually just a little while ago today, reviewed the fifth round of applications to that fund, and are making those as repeatedly and quickly as we can to get that support out into the community. And then, the last thing I would say, just in an overview sense, is, lifting up the arts as that bright spot, as that connective tissue in our community. It's that thing, at the best of times, it brings us together to celebrate. But even in difficult and challenging times like this, the arts are that thing that we all know, that we all recognize, that we all see and experience and feel. And so, we want to be an organization and sort of, to some degree, a control tower for making sure that people can still have those experiences and find and support our artists and continue to support our organizations through this difficult time. So, we're happy to take questions on the work that we have done historically, but most especially kind of where we find ourselves now and how we're navigating this new normal and making sure that the arts can continue to thrive in Cambridge. And so with that, I'm happy to take any general questions if you want to take off mute for a minute or put that in the chat. We'll take a look at that. But then I'll pitch it now to Kirsten to talk specifically about our community arts programs and division and sort of how we're responding both in the very present tense, but in a broader sense to lift up our artists and support our organizations.
Sure. So I'll give a pause for a moment to see if anyone has any immediate questions. Okay. So as Jason said, I work in the community arts department, and in that role, I primarily serve the artist community in Cambridge through our nonprofit organizations, individual artists, and also the general public, art consumers in Cambridge. So those are my three audiences that I work with. One of the things that we do to support our artist community is to connect nonprofits who are serving similar audiences or have similar goals and provide that common ground for people to come together. And with artists, similarly, we provide opportunities for collaboration and for opportunities for them to present their work. So we have 6 broad programs that we work with for the community arts program. And those are the Creative Marketplace, which is a pretty dynamic program that's relatively new and has several offshoots, one of which is the Creative Marketplace exhibitions, where we present art by local artists in Cambridge businesses. And this allows us to connect those spaces that might be off limits or not, that don't have public access, and provide artists an entree into those spaces. It also provides an opportunity for us to support artists economically and financially. We charge the businesses to host those exhibitions and then turn that funding around back to the artists. Another program through Creative Marketplace is our pop-up art markets, where we activate vacant storefronts or university property, different areas that are looking for programming, and we provide opportunities for artists to sell their work free of charge. So usually arts venues like that would sell a market fee, and we don't charge anything for artists to participate. We also provide marketing support for our artists. And then the third branch of Creative Marketplace is our community supported art program, which is currently on a pause, but we hope to bring it back with some new thinking around that program. But the idea behind the community supported art is to provide kind of a learning cohort for artists to learn business practices together, and in addition to some technical skills, to be able to take their practice from their studio and then really create a small business and make sure that they're producing work that's marketable and that reaches the audiences that they're trying to reach. So that's the Creative Marketplace program. We also have our grants program, which provides small grants for artists and organizations in working or living in Cambridge. And it uses state funding through the Mass Cultural Council. And additionally, the city of Cambridge contributes funding for that program. And we were the first city to have funding from the city to support the grants program. So we're really a trailblazer there, and we're very proud of our grant program and the work that our grantees do in the city to provide excellent art programming for the residents and visitors to Cambridge. The River Festival is an annual event that attracts 100,000 to 150,000 people every year. It's the first Saturday in June, and it's a showcase of all of the art that you might see in Cambridge year-round, concentrated in one day from noon to 6. This year, as Jason said, we've made the difficult decision to cancel River Festival, but we're transitioning it into an online opportunity for virtual performances for artists as the Stream Festival. So we have opportunities for artists to share their work online. If you're interested in participating, you can get in touch with me and we can see if there are options for you to be a part of it. Summer in the City is a program for the children and youth of Cambridge to experience performing arts. And it takes place twice a week throughout the summer, July, August, and then into the first weekend of September. It ends Labor Day weekend. And that has puppet programs, theater, music, and dance. And it connects our artists and performers and gives them opportunities to perform for our youth in Cambridge. Open Studios is an annual event that was originally a grassroots effort from our local artist community. And then we, a little over 10 years ago, we took that program on as one of our portfolio programs and made it a citywide Open Studios event. And that's where artists can showcase their work. It's an opportunity to sell their work and to have your information published as part of our cohort of artists. So there's marketing opportunities there as well. We also provide opportunity for performing artists to be a part of Open Studios as well. And then our street performer program provides opportunities for us to support our street performer population, giving out street performer permits and kind of regulating that program to make sure that it's enjoyable and safe and fun for everyone. So those are the community arts programs. I'll pause to see if anyone has questions on any of that. Okay.
How do you obtain a permit? Do you have to apply online or?
So street performer permits are given out in person at our office. You just need an ID, a photo ID, and then you need to fill out our application, and it's completely free for everyone.
And if you obtain one, are you free to just roam around any part of the city to do that?
So we have an ordinance. So there are certain places where you can perform, and it's all listed in the ordinance, which is available online. But there are a broad range of places where you can perform through the ordinance.
Good to know. Thanks.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things I would say is I really like that Kirsten began this sort of overview of programs with the creative marketplace. Because, you know, one of the things I think sometimes we forget, even in dear Cambridge, is, I mean, the reason we're all here, the reason we're in Venture Cafe, and the reason CIC exists to begin with is innovation, right? Innovation, new ideas, new opportunities, ways to connect those ideas to other ideas to mutual benefit or further growth. And so a lot of times, you know, our artists and our makers along those lines get left out of that thinking. You know, it's easy to think of technology and technologists and our education sector and our life science sector, you know, when we're talking about a place like Cambridge, and think, you know, that's where the innovation is happening. You know, but historically and forever since Cambridge has existed, we have been a city of innovation. And, you know, I would say historically that occurred street level, you know, in bars and restaurants and maybe library branches in companies. You know, it was that bump and mingle. I have an idea, you have an idea, we start talking about it. Next thing you know what, we have a new idea, right? And it's innovative. And so sometimes the way we build these days, as we look around us in Cambridge and the larger region, is we don't always find those pathways for connection. The technology folks are together, the education folks are together. You know, our artists are dispersed, you know, according to practice and, you know, what they need to be able to, you know, thrive and do their work. And so sometimes you need that opportunity to bring it together, you know. And so what we did with Creative Marketplace was to have, you know, situate Cambridge Arts right in the middle is the control tower and the connector, the aggregator, the connector, and make sure that these worlds collide to mutual benefit. And that bump and mingle that used to take place sort of street level on the most part can now take place, you know, on the back of the art that gets created and the wonderful artists that are also part of our innovation economy in Cambridge.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks for adding that, Jason. And I also just wanted to add quickly that one of the main things that we do at Cambridge Arts is listen. As a government agency and as a nonprofit, we're here to serve our artist community and the people of Cambridge. So all of our programs come from ideas or things that we've noticed or ideas that people bring to us for ways that we can engage with the arts better and to improve the arts community of Cambridge. So if anyone has more ideas, new ideas, we're always open to hearing those. And if there are holes that you feel like areas that we could do better, we're really open to that too. So with that, I'd like to move on. Cambridge is a really rich area in terms of resources. So we have a long list. All of these are on our website, but I thought that Jason, you might talk a little bit about resources in Cambridge beyond Cambridge Arts. Oh. I think I lost Jason. Do you see him, John?
I should be here. You see me now?
Hi. There you are.
Sorry, and I was speaking, I was on mute. I was trying to say Jason was on mute. All right, welcome back, Jason.
Yep.
Did you want to talk about other resources in Cambridge for artists beyond Cambridge Arts?
Yeah, well, you know, we have a huge number. I think a lot of the folks on the call are, you know, are aware of many of the organizations in the city. And, you know, we know them very well because we are a funder and a partner and the presenter, as I talked about in the beginning. And so, you know, we have a variety of organizations that focus on sort of teaching and learning. Those happen oftentimes, you know, across the disciplines. Like we have the Dance Complex right in Central Square. We have Studio at 550 right in Central Square. And also the Jose Mateo Ballet Theater and Dance for All Community up in Harvard Square. You know, we have our Cambridge Art Association that's right across from the Mount Auburn Hospital. the New School of Music, just and on and so forth. I mean, we're a city that's blessed to have so many different sort of small and mid-sized centers and anchors. And along those lines, one of the things we were able to do about a decade ago in partnership with the State Arts Agency is have Central Square designated as a Massachusetts recognized cultural district. And so, you know, we have a good number of our anchors are right along Massachusetts Avenue as a corridor. And so, you know, we work with them and lift them up so that folks can find really whatever they're looking for, you know, in the context of teaching and learning the arts, seeing arts presented. We're also a city that benefits from having our Central Square Theater, which is the Underground Railway Theater, and the Nora Theater Company, and the Front Porch Arts Collective, you know, all under one roof, as well as the American Repertory Theater right up at Harvard. So, I mean, you know, everywhere you look in Cambridge, we have different things going on in the arts, and we try and make sure that, you know, Cambridge Arts can be one-stop shopping and a one-stop guide, whether it's through our website, through our staff, through our board of directors, and the advisors that we work with, you know, that we really are that one-stop guide, and we can let you know, what's happening, how to connect to those folks, or if you have an idea, you know, who might be some really interesting and reliable partners to help get that idea going.
Thank you. I also wanted to share, we have many resources during this time of the quarantine and the pandemic. We have a lot of resources for artists and anyone listed on our website, on our resources page. But I just wanted to list a few here and point out that we host an office hours every week on Thursdays, 11 to 12. And each week I talk to one of our artists or makers or organization leaders who's doing something interesting at this time and kind of showcase their work. So if you have something that you'd like to talk about, you can bring that to the office hours. We also just answer questions from artists and community members every week. As I said, we have our resources page, and that lists many more opportunities than the ones I've listed here. So please check that out if you're looking for more resources during this time.
You know, and I'd jump in real quick, and then, you know, again, we're happy to take any questions that you have, either directly if you want to unmute yourself or in the chat section. But, you know, one of the things, I've spent a lot of time over the last 8 weeks talking with artists and funders, for instance, in the philanthropic community. There are municipal arts organizations, and of course, just an unbelievable number of our individual artists and our local arts organizations. And what, you know, ever one to look for the silver linings, you know, while we're stir crazy and cooped up in this quarantine mode right now, you know, as we emerge from this, you know, we know that our artists and our organizations live on a razor thin margin financially and sometimes otherwise as well. And that places like Cambridge are very hard to live in and to thrive in when it becomes so expensive to do that. And so I've been grateful to hear some of the thinking as we talk about coming out of quarantine, as we talk about returning to normalcy as we remember it, as it were, but that we're not just returning to something that is what it was, that we're going to return to something that could be and should be better, that we should have an ecosystem for physical spaces where people can gather and experience and make, you know, that we're thinking about all of these things in a way that we end up with an even better sort of Cambridge in context of our regional community, that's stronger and more able to allow our artists and our creatives to thrive. So I've really been excited that, you know, in just 2 short months, with everything else that we have in front of us, you know, and all of the challenges that we're facing as individuals and families and households and organizations, that we're already thinking along those lines. And so I think, you know, Cambridge, as I said before, has a deep history of innovation. And I think we'll innovate again as we come out of quarantine and pandemic thinking. That will actually empower us to do even better by our artists and our makers, you know, in the arts and culture sector. So that's something I've been excited about, and I would share openly, you know, with the group here.
Thanks. Yeah, and I would just add, and I want to reiterate that we're here for you, that the Cambridge Arts Council exists to support our artist community. So please get in touch if you need anything, or if you have any questions now, we'd love to hear them. So thank you.
Not every crowd always says so much. So I think this might be a good sign that you've answered everyone's questions perfectly.
Okay, good.
Indeed. So is there anything else that you'd like to cover right now? Like if people want to find you, what would be like a contact way to go through the Cambridge Arts website? Do you want to drop that in the chat box?
Sure, I'll put it in the chat. There's Cambridge. It's cambridgeartscouncil.org. And I'm at case. Jason, do you want to talk about grants?
Yeah, we you know, on that website, we've got all of the different resources, both for our traditional grant making program that happens on an annual cycle, but also for all of the funds that we've talked about or that you'll see posted on the website. That information is there, you know, for folks to use. We're still very actively right now making grants through the Artist Relief Fund that I referenced. That's grants of up to $1,000 for individual artists and grants up to $5,000 for local arts organizations. But we then also try and thread through a lot of, I mean, we're all barraged with information from the federal government to our state and regional leaders. And so we've also tried to sort of comb through that and make sure that what we're presenting on the Cambridge Arts website is information that'll be highly specific and help, you know, individual artists and arts organizations navigate that, because sometimes it's very difficult. And we want to make that as sort of easy and ready-made as possible for you to be able to benefit from the services that are being put out there. I'd also say, you know, we talked about, and Kirsten very rightly mentioned how innovative Cambridge was in thinking we need to fund artists as much as we need to recognize them and lift them up and create opportunities for presentation, that we also need to put our dollars on the table, you know, and not just through Cambridge Arts as an office, as a department, but right in the mix with our grant making. And so in addition to that early money that Cambridge put in, you know, we're in conversation now with our mayor and our vice mayor and the city council and city administration. And you know, we're right in the midst of our budget process for fiscal 21. And so, you know, we've asked for, and I anticipate we'll have even more money, you know, as we come out of the pandemic to be able to invest in the community. So we're.
And I just wanted to add about the our grant making cycles. Applications I think we'll start accepting applications in September, and then applications are due October 15th. This year. So it's in the fall, and then we let everyone know by January 15th. So that's just the timeline of when our grant application cycle is. And if you're interested in applying, you can find more information online. We also offer individual one-on-one counseling sessions. If anyone's interested in applying for our grants and has questions or would like us to look over their materials before they apply, we're happy to read through it and sit down with you and talk about your application.
Well, we appreciate all that intel. Thank you, Kirsten. And thank you, Jason, for volunteering your time today on this insightful conversation on what Cambridge has to offer and how we can actually utilize it. So that brings us to the end of this session. Thank you so much. If you're looking forward to more of the sessions we got going on tonight, you can go back into vencaf.org/sign in. And if you can do us a favor, this is a one-question survey we have to try and, it's a one-question survey on how useful these sessions are to you. If art imitates life, we're trying to imitate the real thing by convening on here, and we want to know how we're doing. So that's about that. Thank you, everyone, for being here, and we hope to see you out there, okay? Stay well, everyone. Totally.
Thanks so much. Right. And thanks so much for Venture Cafe for having the conversation and resources related to the arts.
Thank you, my friend. You're doing all the good work here. Later, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.